Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen, welcome back to Sunday morning in the old cookbook show. Today we're going to do a recipe out of this cookbook. This was published in 1855. It is a later printing of a book initially published in 1850. And it is Mrs. Bliss's Book of Practical Cookery, containing upwards of 1,000 recipes. And it is practical cookery. A lot of these recipes are, and I don't mean this in a bad way, basic. They use ingredients that pretty much anybody could possibly get their hands on. And the preparations are very simple, meaning that anybody could cook anything out of this cookbook. And having set myself up for that, we are now going to try to make carrot pudding. I'm going to do it a little bit out of order from what's in the method because it calls for breadcrumbs soaked in milk. It doesn't tell you how much milk, so we're going to try that much. Also calls for some salt, so I'm going to put the salt in there too. I'll give that a bit of a stir and see if I've put in enough milk. Probably needs a little bit more. I'm going to say all told at this point I've put in about a cup of milk. Maybe just a little bit more. Just a little bit more, and then I'm going to put the milk back in the fridge. Now, every time we do one of these old recipes and it calls for breadcrumbs, there's always a discussion about, what is a breadcrumb? How finely ground is a breadcrumb? Is it larger chunks and pieces, or is it what I used here, which is a really fine grind? We'll never know. It's very hard to interpret a lot of these older recipes, and one of the biggest problems is that you can't take 2022 logic and knowledge and sort of overlay it with what was going on here. It takes a lot of research sometimes to figure out what they were actually calling for. And as I looked through the rest of this book, I didn't see a lot of language that would lead me to believe that it was larger chunks or the smaller grind that I used. Sometimes they'll use different language in different recipes, and that sort of helps you out trying to figure out what was happening. Couldn't figure it out, so I used the fine grind. Next up, I'm supposed to grate 1 pound of raw carrot. I'm going to cheat. This is probably the best food processor I have ever owned. It's a Braun, and it was my mom's. She bought it in the early 80s, and here it is, still working. I don't use it much out on set, but I use it in the home kitchen all the time. So in the background doing prep, it's constantly in use. It's an animal. I don't think it's ever going to give up, and it's got some great attachments. Can't buy stuff like that anymore. So I've got the carrot. I'm supposed to mix the carrot with 4 egg yolks. So I've decided that it's probably easier to mix those two together in their own bowl, and then add the breadcrumbs in, just like it's written in the recipe. Just like it's written in the recipe. So 4 egg yolks. One. Okay, stir that in as best we can. Now it calls for half a pint of cream. This is an American recipe, so it's a different sized pint than the rest of the world uses. So that old adage, a pint's a pound the world around, not quite, and only for water. So I'm going to say that's about half a pint. Close enough. And I'm going to put that in with the carrots. In go the breadcrumbs. And we'll stir that all up. So this recipe is pretty much defined by all of the things that it doesn't have. There's no sugar. All of the sweetness is going to come from the carrots. There's no spicing. These are things that almost every household would have. You've got some some bread that is gone stale, and you kind of keep the pieces aside for a pudding like this. Carrots. Carrots have always been a relatively inexpensive crop, easy to grow, plentiful at the end of the year. In fact, the carrots that I used in this, I picked up a couple of days ago in Bradford, up near the Holland Marsh, where they grow lots of carrots. And I bought a giant bag of ugly carrots, broken carrots, carrots that didn't suit the supermarkets. Carrots that were essentially meant to go for animal feed, probably would have ended up as animal feed, or those tiny little cocktail carrots or baby carrots. They're made from these other big carrot pieces. They're ground down. That's just a side note. Anyway, so no real baking instructions, no temperature, no size of pan, no length of time. This is a modified custard. We've got eggs and dairy. So I'm going to put it in at 350, but I'm going to watch it closely. I say that. I always say that. We'll see what happens.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Jules.
Hey, friends. That's really orange.
Carrot
Or yellow.
Carrot pudding. Carrot
Okay.
pudding.
So does that make it? Is it savory? Is it sweet? Like I don't know if it's a spoon or a fork.
I think it might be. Well, it's not savory,
Okay.
but there's no sugar, so it's not sweet. Any sweetness comes from the.
Is it like a souffle? Is it filled with eggs? Like I'm. Okay.
Yeah. So there's eggs and breadcrumbs,
Okay.
and no other flavoring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No.
There's not a lot of flavor to that.
No.
I mean, it tastes like carrot. It's like watered down carrot, and it's got an odd texture.
It does have an odd texture. So it's kind of like a bread pudding. So the breadcrumbs make it kind of like a bread pudding, kind of like a bread souffle with the carrot. The carrot doesn't bring as much sweetness as maybe I had thought it might. It does say to serve with a sweet sauce, but of course, like many cookbooks of the time, there is no recipe for a sweet sauce. You just make whatever sweet sauce you would make. So I imagine that's butter, sugar to a caramel, and then with some cream.
Probably a little maple syrup on it. But, you know, at the same time, you could go the other way and throw, like, some thyme or something in it. And
Okay, so this,
it could go either way, savory or sweet, depending upon what you decide to, you know, put sorghum on it.
let's put some sorghum on it.
Okay?
I'm not committed enough to put on the
Maple
syrup.
oh my goodness, sorghum is
Problem with sorghum I keep the sorghum in the fridge. Problem with sorghum in the fridge is that it does get.
super gooey.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're going to share that.
Pull that off and we'll share it up.
I'll put some on my spoon, and you can have the one stuff that's on your spoon, and
So yeah, some.
it's definitely messy now.
1855. What was the economic situation in 1855?
All depends where you lived.
Yeah, it needs something sweet.
A little sweet works, yeah.
Yeah.
So I can see how adding the sweet sauce makes it much more palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hot cream. I could see hot cream poured over that.
Yeah.
On its own, though, no. I can see why this one is lost in time, or has probably been changed to the point where you don't recognize that.
But that being said, I mean, until you added the sweet sauce, which it said to do, just saying.
Yep.
All right, there it is. I don't know what to say.
Not my favorite. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.